have seats here and chill. Good afternoon again. It's nice to be back after a few months. Yeah, I'm happy to see everyone here. Good afternoon again. One of the most popular subjects that teachers and students should know today is how to make use of metacognition. So, seemingly this is a very popular word today where students can actually make use of as an effective learning approach or strategy. So what is metacognition? If you, as the word suggests, it's a compound word. Meta is beyond, more than. So beyond what's ordinary. It's going beyond what is there currently. And of course, cognition is something that uses thought process, thinking process. So briefly, it is the ability to critically analyze how we think. Ability to critically, meaning there is a conscious, deliberate effort to think, critically analyze what you or we think. This means evaluating how well you perform and what caused your success or failure. But it's all in the mind. So again, it is the ability to critically analyze how each learner, student, including teachers, think, and evaluating how well he or she performs, whether he or she succeeds or fails. What else? It involves high self-awareness. High self-awareness and control over your thoughts. Meaning, there is a conscious, as I said earlier, there is a conscious effort that you are thinking about your thoughts. So you have control over your thoughts actively. Active. So the key word is active control of one's thoughts or mental process. Actively choosing what you want to think about. If you are sleeping, is that a metacognition strategy? Sure. Because there's no mental process going on. If your thoughts are very all kinds of thoughts altogether, confused, no specific focus, is that metacognition? Certainly not. Because metacognition demands a controlled, conscious self-awareness of what you are thinking. Developing appropriate thinking strategies at each stage of the task. Effective preparation, monitoring, and self-evaluation. From the very start, preparation, setting of goals, monitoring and evaluation, self-evaluation, and monitoring performance and feedback. All this requires metacognition to really work for the student learner. In short, as they say, simply put, in layman's term, metacognition is thinking about what you're thinking. It's a learning strategy that can make students learn better, acquire, earn better grades, and be more skillful in learning new ideas, concepts, and subject matters. So I think about my thinking, I'm noticing, I'm wondering, I'm seeing, I'm feeling. All these involves deliberate, conscious self-awareness of how the thinking process is going. How to improve metacognition in your students? Very important that you develop among your students the thought process, a strategy or technique that they will think of better ways of improving their capacities to learn and acquire more knowledge, values, and skills. According to Southern Trust Education Foundation, which is a foundation that has conducted intensive research on how metacognition can be taught by students, especially among high school, even elementary grade students. Metacognition and self-regulation approaches, they go together. According to Southern, it aims to help learners think about their own learning more explicitly. This is usually done by teaching pupils specific strategies. What are these strategies? One, to set goals and monitor and evaluate their own academic development. So who's the best person to give feedback to somebody that, hey, I'm learning or I'm not learning at all? It's the person himself or herself, right? Okay. The intention is often to give pupils a repertoire of strategies to choose from during learning activities. So essentially, metacognition means being aware of what you are thinking about and choosing effective strategies. So let's learn more about how these strategies will work well and benefit our learners. Okay. One simple strategy that the student can do to develop and acquire metacognition strategies and approaches is the learner should be able to ask good questions. He should ask himself, do some self-questioning. What are the examples of this self-questioning? So the student can say, is this task that I'm being given a new assignment that I'm supposed to do, the new project that we're going to conduct, is this similar to the one I had last year? So the first thing that a student does would be to do some self-questioning, asking good questions about the relationship, about the current project, current task, learning task, current activity with the immediate task. What should I do first? Ano bang gagawin ko? What are my plans? How will I go about it? What would I do differently this time? You know, our learning approach under the K-12 is spiraling strategy. So what is there in the simplified form is learned in the first year. The second year will be a more complex thing until he goes to senior high school. That will be more complicated and more difficult than the simpler task. So in other words, most of the tasks, if not all, are interrelated. so that student can make the connections and ask himself or herself the question, how different, how similar, how far, how easy, how difficult will this task that I'm confronted with today. So asking himself good questions related to the task. Okay. What are the different projects that are required of students now? You're not just being asked a simple recall, asking questions in the classroom. Now, you are being asked to come up with, let's say, if it's an English class, you prepare seminar paper, research paper. If it's a visual, let's say, arts, you're required to do some shows, do filming tasks, do a lot of complicated projects. If it's a science project, then you are going to come up with experiments. So how do you go about the experiments? You need to have the objective, the goals, the procedures, the strategy, and the conclusion. So if a student is properly guided by us teachers on how they can really go about arranging their thoughts so that their thinking process can really help them think critically about the project or task, then that would be an immense help. So first, questioning themselves, assessing what they know and what they don't know, among others. Okay. Number two would be simple modeling. So the teachers will do some shading and modeling. You know, when I was in college, I used to do this, but we felt that there was some gaps. So if I were you, I'd like to tell you that if you do it this way, this could be a much better procedure strategy than I had my time in high school. So you model to your students, explaining to students how you will approach a task or exam question means they can tap into your knowledge and develop their metacognitive skills. Remember, the development of the metacognitive skills is conscious and involves self-awareness. It has to be developed by the teacher and practice and put to use. What else? Students should have self-awareness. They should know what they know, what they don't know, what are yet to be known, what are the resources at hand, what are their strengths, their limitations, their weaknesses. In short, they should go through some process of analyzing the immediate and the facilitating factors. Let's say if they prepare a seminar paper, a reading report, they should be able to think about how to go about the project of the task. They will not just go into it without proper thinking and planning. So, here, the students can already make a strong self-awareness, and then they already should be able to identify mentally what they know, what they don't know, and in case they are not sure of something, that they can go into thinking further about the need to improve their learning. What else? Set great goals. I remember when I was a teacher, my father was a teacher too. He would always tell me, you should set goals. You should have a roadmap in life. Whether it's personal, professional, even your love life, you should follow a roadmap. You should have a goal, because you'll just be drifting away, wasting precious time. There should be timeline. May limit yung gagawin mo. Hanggang ilan ka ba sa high school? Hanggang 20 years ka ba sa college? Wala na, you have wasted so much precious time. So here, even in developing metacognitive skills, mentally the child, the learner should be able to set great big goals. Mentally, goals should be both challenging and realistic. You can develop with the students. As teachers, you can develop in them. How can you come up with a challenging goal? How can you come up with a small time goal compared with big goals? How can you come up with realistic, doable goals? Other tips for effective goals include setting short and long-term ones. So you can teach your students, think of what are the short goals, and then from there on, you proceed further to think of long-term goals. Focusing more on skill development and considering potential obstacles. So you can tell your students, while you're mentally thinking of setting goals, think of what are the short-term and long-term goals, and imagine the possibility, think of the possibilities of obstacles and struggles you will experience in the process of coming up with a project or a task. If you know what obstacles may come your way, you will be better equipped to overcome them when the time comes. So, if the students are mentally trained to really expand their creative thoughts, to start setting goals, getting big goals, identifying hindrances, and dividing the tasks into beginning, before, during, after. I think the students will really be able to become very good tasks, learning tasks. Then, preparation. Nothing beats thorough preparation. Mentally, a child should think of how best to prepare for the project. What else? Monitoring your performance. Don't wait until the end to see how you're doing. Now, I'd like to share with you my experience. When I'm at home, I was tasked by the president of the university, St. Paul's, where I sit as a board of trustees, one of the members of the board of trustees. So I was tasked to sit in the panel for doctoral and master's thesis. But sometimes I get myself disappointed because most of the students are working students. They're all principals, and teachers, supervisors, even superintendents. I said, how come Chapter 2, Chapter 3 are not related to the first chapter, background of the study methodology? Parang iba-iba itong study. Meaning, before you go to Chapter 3, for unity and cohesion and cohesiveness, the advisor should be able to correct the first chapter and say, you can proceed because you're right on track as far as methodology, the significance of the study, and the resources and the power. Unfortunately, nag-iba itong second, nag-iba naman focus mo sa third chapter. Meaning, there was very little monitoring of the thesis and presentation by the advisor. Sabi naman, kasi busy ako ma'am, busy din yung advisor, we had no time to sit together. Nakikita lang niya ito pag at the very start, before chapter 1 was drafted, hanggang sa natapos. So, iba-iba. Sabi ko, no, it should not be that way. A good thesis should be consistent from the identified problem to chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. One reason is because there was no constant, regular monitoring of output of performance. So it's very important that there is a regular, consistent monitoring of performance, so that from beginning to end, the project is really well connected. Okay. Being able to monitor your performance as you know, as you go along, and checking in on how you are doing is an important metacognitive skill. So, parang you are made to just backtrack a bit, connect it to the present, connect it to the future, one cohesive, united, right up for project. So you can train your students this, that continually monitor your performance so that you will not just fail at the end because you have not actually checked regularly where you are, how far you are going, or are you on the right direction. What else? Seek out feedback and then use it. It would be late for a student to learn and come up with a project if he does not solicit feedback from colleagues, classmates, and teachers in the classroom. And then use this feedback to enhance the project. Many people make a number of mistakes on asking for feedback. This includes leaving it to the last minute, only asking, is this okay? Especially sometimes if the student is overly confident. Alam ko na ginagawa. Alam ko na. Later you realize never use a strategy of seeking feedback and actually adopting or implementing the positive feedback. Once you have the feedback, you have to use it. Feedback that has been sought, but that action is wasted. So seeking feedback, seeking help, it's like shouting, hey, come on, is this okay? From time to time. You can only ask, is this okay at the end of the task when everything is such a waste, it will be too late to correct it. And a student must acquire metacognitive skills, can actually keep a diary. After doing all those strategies, keeping a diary of what you did, what you were thinking, how you felt, students will begin to build their self-awareness and develop their metacognitive skills. This may not come easy to some at first, but after a while, quickly it becomes a habit. That's why if you notice in our modern classroom under the KPM, teachers, administrators are required to come up with a journal. It's like a diary. Tracking, keeping track, making a record of what has been done as an administrator and manager. Teachers are allowed to prepare lesson plans. Students are required to come up with portfolio, diaries, journals, what else? Anything that they write about as an offshoot of their thinking process. So, when you develop the metacognitive skills, going through all these strategies always required. How do you go about different metacognitive strategies? Make them come up with a diary. And you will discover that indeed it has been an effective learning technique or approach to students. Final thought. Final thought. Teaching students better metacognitive techniques with life skills. Remember, the objective of education is to develop along with life skills. that will help them get better grades, among others, but eventually better professionals. As with any skills, this requires time, patience, and practice. But helping them develop metacognitive skills at each stage of a task will help. Prior to the task, this involves setting goals, preparing thoroughly, thinking about similar previous situations. During the task, this includes monitoring their performance, and after the task, seeking feedback. So we now go to the cycle of self-regulated learning, which is an offshoot of metacognition, the development of metacognition skills. Okay? The cycle of self-regulated learning, showing steps students can take throughout the process. Basic man yan, di ba? The usual. But we don't want to assume anything. We'd like to make clear about how we go about developing metacognitive skills. The first is plan. As in most activities in life, big or small, plan, set goals, and lay out strategies. Plan, set goals, and lay out strategies. So, as an exercise in the classroom, because it takes time, patience, and practice, you can have a thinking, you can have a quiet 10 minutes, 5 minutes. My dear students, sit down, try to think about what you're thinking consciously. Come up, you can either close your eyes, you can either, whatever is comfortable with you, think of how you plan your proposed project. Let's say your project is, project name, your reading report. After watching a movie, you come up with commentaries, reactions, and recommendations, or comments, or critique about a movie scene. Start with the plan. Then set goals. Then lay out strategies. What will you do to execute your plan, your objective? The next step is use strategies and monitor performance. I'd like to underscore the word strategies and monitor performance. That's very important because this is the implementation process. Ito yung pre-task. This is the before of the activity. This is the during, which is to me as crucial as the first. Because this will implement or put meat into the goals. And finally, the third would be the after. How do you reflect after you have gathered feedback, and how do you respond to the feedbacks that you have received? Are you going to use it, ignore it, forget it, whatever? The fact remains that you are using your metacognitive skills. From then on, it's the cycle. Use results from previous performance to guide the next. So if it's an English subject, you do a paper first semester, you do another paper second semester, you do another paper the next year. Succeeding years, you still do thesis, reports, and so on. But if the students are already practiced, skillful in using metacognitive skills, that will be a very good learning strategy. So this is the cycle of self-regulated learning, because there's self-control, it's self-awareness. If the student says, I'm not going to think of anything, voila, there's no metacognition taking things. But if there's a conscious, deliberate, self-awareness na effort to think about your thoughts, that's where metacognition is being used. Okay, let's explain further about the cycle of self-regulated learning. The first is plan, set goals, and lay out strategies. What does this involve? The first thing that the student will ask is this a task I've done before or something? Because nothing is fragmented. All things are, even the world is interconnected. No man is an island. Everything is interconnected, interrelated, lahat po. So, the student first thinks of how can he relate this to previous experience. Nagawa na ba ako ng reading report doon? Nagawa na ba ako ng thesis doon? Kasi these are very difficult written tasks, di ba? Yung mga reports. Okay. Does it build off a task I've done before? How much will it take me to finish this task? How much focus will I need? And so on. So this is within the planning and the setting goals. And lay out how will I go about my project? If it's a project, what will I do? What are the readings I have to do? What are the interviews I have to make? What are the resources I need to have? So these are the questions that would flood the mind of the students as he or she develops metacognitive skills. Hindi yung isip ka lang ng walang direction. It's a purposeful thinking of what you're thinking. See the difference? Okay. Actually, our mind is underutilized. According to experts, we only use about 1/10 of what we can do actually. We have not reached the capacity to really think deeply unless we are Steve Jobs and ano pa yung mga geniuses. The normal children, the normal students, we really seldom use our coconut brain. Okay, so after setting goals and lay out strategies, how will I structure these tasks? What are the intermediate checkpoints and sub-goals? Can I complete an outline in 2 weeks? Then a rough draft 1 week prior to the due date? What would allow time to get extra help as needed? So the students are able to practice and come up with these thoughts that would enhance deeper the metacognitive skills. Because remember, everything starts from here. The action is only an effect of what comes here. Pero kung wala dito, talagang wala rin mangyari. Diba? But if this one is fully utilized and exercised, eventually madali na lang yung bata because he will have a very rich background of thoughts, ideas, resources, whatever. Tools he or she needs to make a task much better. Okay. Will I need resources from the library, a color printer, help from my lab partners, appointment for office hours? Given my needs, when should I get started on these tasks? So on and so forth. I don't know, but I was very curious one time with my daughter. Every time I would go and see her, I said, "Ma, I'll see you at Jollibee." What's there in Jollibee? Why are you always there in Jollibee? You're not gaining weight naman always at Jollibee. Hindi pala. Ang ginagawa doon, nag-aral sa Jollibee. Why are you there at Jollibee? It's so noisy and so on. But iba-iba ang learning, ano ba yun? Style ng mga bata doon. Wala sa, nakikita yun, kita mo yung people passing by, the noise around. And yet they claim that they are thinking better, they're learning faster in the well-lighted, sometimes madugo na Jollibee or Macdo. And this is happening even today, di ba? There are people who prefer to live, to learn, and study there in the well-lighted Jollibee with all the other customers meaning I don't know. But at least it has enhanced their thinking process. Kasi kung masama, maganda naman yung grades. So whatever strategy there is that is effective to the particular learning, so be it. Given how much time I have available, my strength and weaknesses, my current standing in the course, what type of outcome would I like? Do I need to ace this? Or is it okay? I can just complete it successfully. So these are all questions that would come into the mind of the student, which is very beneficial to him in the long run because I exercise the strategies, thinking strategies. Use strategies and monitor performance. That's the second step. Okay. Use self-observation to reflect on the actions taken by the student and the effectiveness of the results. For example, when I studied in a quiet location in the library, I completed the reading more quickly than when I read at home. Why is there a big difference? Siguro at home, there's TV, so much food, so much other siblings going around, talking. So there's very little focus and concentration. But at the library, when it's ideal, it's an ideal environment where practically no noise will be heard. Mas madali siya. So these are strategies born out of self-awareness and self-observation. Because things don't always go smoothly, have students make a plan for what to do when obstacles arise. There will always be problems. Like, magpapasilos kayo, wala namang silos machine nearby. Kung may problema yung libro, marami kayo gumagamit, walang libro. So, ganito na rin. Or, there is no signal, or there is no Wi-Fi. So these little obstacles can sometimes make a student go crazy if he doesn't know how to handle it. For example, if I get stuck on the math in this assignment, I will go to the TA's, teacher assistants, weekly help session. In some big universities, meron silang parang help, parang room of last resort. Yun talagang hindi makuha yung isang concept before proceeding to the more difficult ones. They can go there and seek the technical assistance of experts. Usually yung math and science meron doon at saka yung mga manual work sa technical vocation doon pumunta. Mayroon silang parang room of last resort, something like that. Pumupunta sila doon. And that is one way of somehow assessing the potential obstacles that the student encounters. Prompt students to stick with the strategies, even though it may be tempting to revert back to known but ineffective strategies. Unfamiliar approaches may feel insignificant at first, but learning the method can be as important as learning the material, especially if it involves a group project. Kasi iba-iba, different students have different personalities and different mental capacities and different psychological foundations. So, a student with a very developed metacognitive skills should already be aware there's no need of going back and forth, accommodating other suggestions simply because you want to accommodate the suggestion. You have to stick it out if you feel that you are on the right position to go about it. Have the students monitor their progress. It's always monitor their performance on the intermediate goals and the strategies they are using. At the same time, you can also monitor their progress and offer feedback. So with your help as teachers, you can actually develop your students into properly, effectively using, thinking about their own thinking. and enriching how they go about a particular project or learning task. With your assistance and guidance. Then, the third step is reflect on performance. Reflect on performance. Brown out siguro dun sa amin. So when you reflect on performance, ask students to evaluate their own performance and their results. Students should compare their performance to their original performance, not to the performance of others. Because it will create envy or tension. Tinitingnan mo yun. Monitor your performance against your previous prior tasks. Sabi mo, this is a much better output than the last one I submitted because I've been properly guided to develop my metacognition skills. Reflect on the effectiveness of strategies used. Did they select an appropriate strategy? Did they follow through with the selected strategy and so on? Finally, as teachers, you help students manage their emotions and in time direct them toward productive lines of thinking about how they can improve their performance. Even if their outcome is not what they had hoped, they can still learn from the experience. So it's your job as teachers to somehow assure emotionally your students you're right on track. What you're thinking is actually right and so on. So you inspire, encourage your students to really practice metacognition. A key part of this process is that students use this reflection, reflect on performance, to plan for the next task. Remember, for the whole year, you are confronted, a student has so many tasks to prepare, di ba? Marami pong output in projects. Individual or group projects or the whole class project, iba-iba or may vary. But at least they're assured that they are doing what they're expected to do. Okay? How will they adapt their planning, strategy, time management, and self-monitoring will be dependent on how the teacher provides the guidance, expertise, and the heart. Okay? Any question about metacognition? How we develop metacognitive skills? So just remember the processes involved. The cycle of self-regulated. That it's something that you can actually develop among your students. And not just take for granted that they are thinking alongside what you are thinking as a teacher. You see the point? It's something that you should not assume that they're thinking. You should develop them. With these steps, this process, you will eventually, being patient and tolerant, eventually develop in them the thinking about what they're thinking. Any question? None. I go to the next.
We're still thinking about it.
So, as I said, the simplest definition of metacognition is thinking about what you're thinking. So these are thoughts that will develop our students mentally, socially, physically, culturally, spiritually, and so on. These are positive thoughts that will enhance learning. Hindi yung mag-i-imagine yung magkaroon.
Share ko lang po kasi in the study that I did, what metacognitive strategies are being used by the deaf in reading and math. So,
very good.
most of them would be using ask, a teacher or ask a parent as a strategy. For example, if they are stuck with a reading task or a math task, their solution is to ask.
That's one strategy.
Yeah, that's one strategy. But then, in that study, I found out that they have very limited strategies, metacognitive strategies. And I think that we as teachers should really be conscious in teaching other strategies.
Yes.
Because asking a parent, asking a teacher
Is
for
easy
the
to
solution is a dependent strategy. So we want really to develop the critical thinking skills of our
So you can actually share with them as modeling. You can share, these are the things, these are the procedures or tools that you can actually do if you really want to develop your metacognitive skills. We will now go through parent-teacher collaboration. Very often we hear about quotations that say, no man is an island. It takes the whole village to educate a child. The business of education is everyone's business. This can be very well true with parents and teachers partnership. So today, my second topic is parent-teacher collaboration strategies that work, not just here and abroad. I visited one, we used to have a grant from the Australian government where 5 years we would go there every year for free, sponsored by the Australian government. And the first time I noticed, I observed when we visited one school, isolated school, it's like a barangay, rural area with natives, the aboriginals. I noticed in that school, every parent is connected to the school, interconnected. So if a child comes in late, the parent is already right away informed, our child came in late. If a child doesn't feel very well for that day, the teacher will let them in. Email, parang, yeah, then message to the parent will immediately. Parang talagang every movement, activity, event, achievement, failure, what, passed on right away to the parents. It's very good. And I see a lot of parents there in the school. Sabi ko, in our country, we only see parents during PTA meeting only and distribution of cards only. But never an attempt to bring them together for another purpose, like sharing the technology, sharing knowledge, or pinch hitting for the teacher. But they do that in Australia. Sabi ko, what is the passing rate here? 100%. What is the behavioral record? How do you track the performance of a person? Very good, positive yun. Sabi ko, it's good pala rin. Every student is connected, interconnected with the household within the family. So they would right away know about the status. Madali ma-profile ka. Because it's so nice to have a strategy in our country, but we cannot afford kasi walang computer, dito lang mga mahal sa barangay. But that's one way of bringing actively parent involvement into the classroom. Okay. Let's try to come up with how can we bring in parents into schools, into our classrooms. One is parent-teacher conferences. You can do this regularly. Don't do it once a year. Do it as the need arises. Just to bring them into your classroom and make them realize that hey, the business of education is a partnership of parents and teachers. Hindi lang sa amin. So bring them in. Get them involved in your activities, so you conduct monthly, quarterly parent-teacher conferences. But be very creative in your conference. Hindi lang one track, ikaw lang blah 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 blah. Give them time to also give you feedback, observations, comments, whatever, praises, whatever. Okay, so be creative with them. Parent-teachers conferences. What else? You can host an open house. I notice here abroad, in good elite schools in the country, thematic yung ganun activity, let's say, Valentine's Day, or United Nations. United Nations, they really make it a big activity doon. Why? The expats, they bring in their products, they bring in their whatever, anything that will tell a story about their country. So it's a way of involving every parent in the school. So they have an open house where everybody gets to learn about the culture, about the food, lahat-lahat in the... Ay, ang masyadong very festive, and it was a handiwork of the principal who make sure that the parents are really present in the school. So come up with an open house. They do all the decorations, they do all the arrangement, they provide the food, they provide the music. Sila, ang teachers, nagpupunan sila lang kumakain. But the process is actually involvement of parents in school activities. So come up with an open house. Do it thematic. At the start of the, when does your class start? So 13. So August 13. You require the parents to come. And then you come up with a very creative way of providing information about your school, about your policy, about your rules and regulations. Okay? Without being dogmatic and demanding and controlling. Diba? So, another is, there are parents or even experts on different kinds of fields, no? Why don't you involve them? If you talk about engineering, for example, a class in what? Math. Okay. You can invite a father engineer to share, discuss more about how can we actualize this theory. So bring in volunteers from your parents. Cooking lesson, you can get the housewives. Volunteer, sila pa magbili ng mga lahat ng ingredients. So it's a simple, artistic, creative way of bringing them in. Through volunteering, through open house, through conferences. Make yourself available. You know, both ways, if you listen to both parties, the parents and teachers, very often the parents would complain, I cannot even have the chance to talk to the teacher because the teacher is always busy. After class, she will always rush home. She will do somewhere. Wala talagang time to talk to the teacher. It should not be the case. You have to give time for parents to see you and talk to you, and especially you listening to parents, not just the other way around. Okay? So, create a time that's 1 hour every week, every Wednesday. That's for Parents Day. Parents hour, they can come to tell your students, they can come and see me. Or, especially, call the attention to a particular parent, not because of problems, but just good. Developing good vibes and good relationships. As simple as congratulating the performance of the student. Then, keep parents informed. You know, in countries, in schools we visited, every month they have a bulletin. This bulletin is prepared, it's not naman yung expensive one, parang nirorolyo lang. But these are write-ups of students. Hindi siya masyadong corrected, ang kikita pa yung mga grammatical defects, but they just, because they want the parents to know that the child needs correction and assistance, and later on they can show, look, your child has improved in his writing skills, and so on. Keep parents informed, either through a bulletin or whatever, letter or call, text, Facebook. Kaya lang Facebook, everybody gets to know about it. Baka hindi. Unless you have prior clearance from the parent. Pwede ka ba maka-Facebook? Oh, but you cannot criticize. I mean, give your authentic feedback to the parents of Facebook. Gagamit yun sa'yo. So I don't think it's a morally right. Siguro other ways, no? So keep parents informed. Getting to know your student. Okay, first day. Meron akong teacher noon, first day, she wanted to impress. Yung parents, klase ka agad. Sabi ko, bakit klase ka agad? Bakit klase ka agad? Very idealistic. You need to know more about your students. Get them to learn more about profiling the students. Maski marunong ba ito magbasa, ito hindi magbasa. As simple as that, when you go right away to your first lesson, getting to know each other. You have to also tell something about yourself, especially the teacher, tapos yung mga classmates. Why do you start classes right away? That's not proper. I mean, it's unpsychological right away start. When you need to put the children at ease and feel comfortable with you and their new classmates. Okay? So get to know your students well. And the moment meron na kayong rapport, and madali na lang. Alright, parent-teacher communication, advice from veteran teachers. Parent-teacher communication. Communicate, communicate, communicate in whatever tool or method or okay. Develop a parent-teacher relations. Sino ba yung pwede mong kaibiganin? Sino ba yung ganito? I mean, you should be friends. A teacher advisor should be friends to all parents. Okay? Get parents involved. For example, if there is an experiment in science, and then they collect the materials, let's say you have to go to the park to gather the butterfly, so let the parents help the children. That way, no matter how small it is, seemingly insignificant, but that's involvement of parents. They love you more if you keep them involved. Okay. Reading, you can conduct a reading carnival. The teachers, you just sit down in the corner, let the parents read to their children. Iba-iba. Use the reading carnival regularly, hindi lang once a year. That way, they will put value in reading. Ako, I always give the emphasis on reading because it's a tool to learn. So come up with a reading carnival regularly. Vary the strategy and the activities. That way there will be a closer relationship with you. Okay. For example, the project is how can families help students improve their writing skills? Kasi itong pinakamahirap. How can families help improve their writing skills? You can organize a team of parents as a advisory group. Okay, do this, etc., etc. Yung mga educated parents, you can help them. Diba? You just don't invite parents pag magkolekta na. Bayad, ikaw, hindi ka nakabayad. Ganito pag yun lang. But do it in a regular manner So that the moment you start reminding them of the contribution, it's not really, it does not elicit negative feelings from the part of the parents. Okay, report cards. So give feedback to the parents. Okay. Help parents deal with homework. Homework, as the name suggests, is something you do at home. So let the parents be aware, and more importantly, help the students do their homework. Let them sign. Ako nung pinasign ko talaga yung parents to prove that the parents are aware of what the students are doing. Let them sign your homework to show that they are helping. And that way you get them involved. Okay. Then you can have multiple intelligences questionnaire. Everybody is aware of multiple intelligences, right? So you provide all occasions with which the multiple intelligences are enhanced or developed. Conferences. You do conferences as well as documentation. So you come up with a common documentation form when you agree on topics and come up with wise decisions. You do this in a manner that you document para they can have something to bring home. Don't just let the parents live without any proof of their involvement or activity. So documentation. Parent-teacher conferences, 5 important questions. Parent-teacher conferences before, during, after. Yung 5 important questions. Yung mga who, what, where, when, why. Resources. You can also share resources with parents by bringing that up during a parents-teachers conference. You can have open house, you can have additional resources. You host a successful open house, create a meaningful open house. You know, one time, it was January. I can speak based on my observation. It was January. It was not Christmas anymore. Australia celebrates Christmas in December like us. But January, wala na. But anong ginawa nila? For those who have failed to greet someone in December, you can still do it in January. So it was fun for the parents. How you can be more creative if failing to greet, kasi sila naman, masyado silang social, diba? They're very social. So, it was January and it was still Christmas. So, how you carry out Christmas blessings and greetings to your other parents and other members of the community. Create meaningful open house. Alam mo, one time nakita ko yung open house na they just put the walls, cover the walls with Manila paper. Ano not Manila paper? Newspaper. They put the newspaper. It was an art, visual arts day. You know what the students did? Background into Manila paper. Newspaper, crumpled. The students just came up with watercolor, splashed their hands, anything on the wall. Tawa-tawa ng mga parents kasi they were just praying on the wall. For us, that's nothing, but for the parents and the children, they really have fun putting their marks, fingers, paa, or nilagay na sa wall. Covered with Manila paper. Manila paper, newspaper. Okay, very creative. You can have back-to-school headquarters. That can be a resource in your school. August 13, they'll be back to your school. You can come up with better strategies with the parents. New teacher resources. You can tell them, hello, ito yung bago natin. The benefit of parents and teachers working together. Anong sabi? Communicate, communicate, communicate. So there should be no wall between parents and they should not be enemies. Pag binigyan kita ng grado na 70, the parents should not feel that galit ka sa akin kasi 70 yung grado. You should make the parents understand that if I give you a grade of 70, your children, your students, that's a well-earned grade. And inspire the students to do more. So open the lines of communication, text, call, bulletin, whatever. Basta openly communicate. Approach issues head-on. Maraming principals na nahiya sa parents. Sometimes they are intimidated by parents. Especially kung mayayaman yung parents para yung principal, hindi naman sabi. But there should be, if there are problems and issues, you should discuss it there openly before all parents. Deal with the tough stuff together, especially problematic children. Not all kids have an easy transition to school or enjoying being at school. This problem is worst in countries with so many expats, maraming mga migrants, like America or China, or maraming halo-halong nationalities. It's a big problem. And that's a cause for drugs, truancy, and all school problems you can think of. Okay? Consider each other's perspectives. Sabi ko nga, when the parents and teachers meet, dapat isa should listen at one time and the other should be the one talking. You should never assume that you are the only one, the principal or the director or the superintendent should do all the talking. You should have a chance for parents to talk and respond and comment and observe. That way, tansyado po, maganda po ang relasyon ng school, teachers, and parents. I would suggest for a small school ito, hindi lang si May magsalita. All the teachers should be, during the orientation, all the teachers should be allowed to talk, and all the parents should be allowed to talk also. What are your impressions about the new school? What are your expectations about your own student? Makinig din kayo. So the listening process should be both ways. Never assume that the teacher or the principal will dominate the discussion. Quiet lang yung parents. Pagkatapos ng 2 hours, uwi na yung parents, wala silang nasabi. You should also take time to listen. And finally, the best partnerships aren't dependent on a mere common goal, but on a shared path of equality, desire, and no small amount of passion. So keep that passion, energy, dynamism burning. Our teachers, as you open up the first day in a new school, an entirely new environment, facing a new challenge this year. Good luck and God bless.
Any questions? Si Meng po may question.
So I was thinking of, for instance, with student, tapos they have like this, and the teacher because we all
Well, take note of individual differences. Different students develop a different rate, a different method. So you have to be skillful as teacher or observer on who is learning fast compared to others. So you can vary the task between and among your students. The more advanced ones who have mastered the metacognition skills will be given more complex tasks. The simpler ones will be for those who are still struggling and developing their thinking skills. So take note of individual differences. You cannot put the task true to all because we're all aware of the differences and the varying degrees of their learning and thinking process.
One more question.
I'm retired. Otherwise, I'm not here.
Yes.
But I've never retired in education. First and foremost, you're very lucky because you're dealing with the fewer number of students. So actually you can do individual instruction and you can track individual growth and progress. It's very easy, very ideal. But in that case, you advise the teacher. That's why we have continuing education. You can either take masters or attend trainings and conferences, accredited trainings and conferences, that they will also acquire the same teaching skill, the same expertise as teachers, that you are. I know I can see that you're a good teacher, but you can actually share your technology with others. So sharing, the principal should make sure that you share your personal experience in enhancing the technology. It's a matter of modeling and sharing. Answer the question.
So, there's no experience. There means interaction with cultures and what about the culture and the lifestyle. And then there's responsibilities and there's the girls. They have the different perspective.
That's very good. That's the same problem to almost all schools, especially with new new teachers. It's a job of the principal to ensure that the new teacher acquires current teaching strategies and methods. Diba, marami tayong teaching strategies, inductive, deductive, at ano na lang. So, teach them the tools to effectively teach their children, especially in dealing with special deaf students. But primarily, you can do something and help your principal so that other teachers, especially the new ones, the bagito, can develop the same teaching strategy that you have mastered. In that way, you become an expert, a leader in your area. It's a matter of sharing and modeling. Siguro, Dr. May, one day you can teach about how to develop. That's your masteral piece of work. That's good. You can develop this, and that they too can subsequently develop this to their children. Have one session on how to develop metacognition skills. One day we do. You get out of, out of the sun, come up with a very ideal place to think and enrich your thoughts and develop your imagination. Creative, allow your creative juices to flow. You do that. Thank you very much. Congratulations. I see a good teacher.
No more questions? No more questions? Okay, so with that, on behalf of Bill, we would like to thank you, Dr. Almeda, for being our consultant for a year. And I would like to announce that she will still be our consultant for the next school year. And thank you for all the time, the resources, all the sharing, the learning sessions. Yes, we've learned a lot, Dr. Almeda. Okay, thank you so
But
much.
I'm interested. Come up with a plan of action with your parents.
Sige po.
You can come up with an action plan solely for parent-teacher partnership. Present that to them. These are our expectations for the year. Saludo na.
I think, photo